Madam President, on January 8th, I think that most Americans, most of the world really, was still deeply shaken by what happened in this building on January 6th when the mob broke in. January 6th was an assault on American democracy. It was an armed insurrection, not just against this building, but against the Constitution and the government of the United States of America. The violent mob was sent to this Capitol by a defeated president to try to cancel an American election. The mob overran and ransacked this Capitol, smashing windows and doors. They built a gallows on the Capitol's ground and called for the vice president to be hanged for following his duties under the Constitution, for refusing to join in the coup attempt. People died that day in this building, on these grounds. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who I mentioned earlier, suffered fatal injuries trying to hold back the insurrectionist mob sent by the president. 2 more officers who fought to save the Capitol died by suicide in the days that followed. More than 140 police officers suffered serious injuries. Many of them are still recovering. But the insurrection at the Capitol, the attack on American democracy, wasn't what alarmed the dark money special interest who came together for an all-hands-on-deck conference call just 2 days later on January 8th. The conference call was organized by a group with the innocuous name Stand Together, a group that was run by the Koch brothers organization, well known to anyone who follows American politics. Among the participants on this private conference call was an advisor to the minority leader, Senator McConnell. We know these things because a recording of the conference call found its way to Jane Mayer, an investigative reporter for the New York Magazine, who has written a book on the Koch brothers and dark money in politics. What alarmed the dark money special interest on that conference call wasn't the violent insurrection in this building 2 days earlier. According to Ms. Mayer's reporting, the reason the special interests were frightened was because they could not find a way to turn the American people against a piece of legislation, S1, a bill known as For the People Act. The For the People Act is a democracy defense bill. It would limit the influence of dark money and special interest on our politics, and it would improve access to the ballot box for American voters. We know that access is under attack today in Georgia and 30 other states. Efforts are being made to suppress the American vote. The Koch brothers group spends its money freely to exert political control. And they sent the pollsters out before this conference call to test every attack they could think of against this bill. Nothing worked. Let me read you a passage from Ms. Mayer's article. It's a bit long, so bear with me. This is based on a recording on the call. Quote, Kyle McKenzie, the research director for the Koch-run advocacy group Stand Together, told fellow conservatives and Republican congressional staffers on the call that he had a spoiler. When presented with the very neutral description of the bill, people were generally supportive, McKenzie said, adding the most worrisome part is that conservatives were actually as supportive as the general public when they heard the neutral description. In fact, he warned, there's a large, very large chunk of conservatives who are supportive of these efforts. As a result, Mayer wrote, McKenzie conceded the legislation's opponents would likely have to rely on Republican senators, where the bill is now under debate, to use what they called under-the-dome strategies, legislative maneuvers such as the filibuster, to stop the bill, because turning public opinion against it would be incredibly difficult. S1, For the People Act, a bill to stop billionaires from buying elections. You can see why Charles Koch, who's grown accustomed to using his wealth to influence elections and dominate the national agenda, wouldn't like that kind of a bill. And you can see why he and others, members of the dark money power elite, would be alarmed that all the spin doctoring money can buy can't turn people against the bill, can't even turn conservatives against the bill. What's a poor billionaire to do? Well, they said it right there on the conference call. They can't debate the bill because they don't have a winning argument. Senator McConnell is just going to have to kill it under the dome. Senator McConnell is going to have to filibuster it. One of the myths that defenders of the filibuster like to use is that it encourages debate and compromise. In reality, today's phone-it-in remote control filibuster is used to make sure debate never even starts. There's another myth that defenders of filibuster would like us to believe. They say, and Senator McConnell has repeated it, the filibuster has nothing to do with race. History tells us the opposite is true. The filibuster has always been more a creation of James Crow than James Madison. Segregationists used filibusters to block anti-lynching bills in 1922, 1923, 1924, 1935, and 1938. Segregationist senators filibustered bills to outlaw poll taxes in 1942, 1944, 1946. Segregationists filibustered bills outlawing discrimination in employment, housing, and voting. They filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1957, 1960, and 1964. Every time segregationists used the filibuster to block civil rights measures, they spoke of the tactic as nearly a sacred principle passed down by our founding fathers. Now, with voting rights under the broadest attack in more than 50 years, with hundreds of bills being introduced in state legislatures to make it harder for many Americans, especially people of color, to vote, we are once again facing a threatened filibuster of a voting rights protection bill in the Senate. History repeats itself. Largely under Senator McConnell's leadership, today's filibuster has been transformed into a weapon of mass destruction. In 2009, during the Great Recession, America was in a financial freefall, our economy teetering on the edge of another depression, millions out of work, homes, life savings at risk. Senator McConnell said, and I quote, "My number one priority is to make sure President Obama is a one-term president." And the number one weapon he used to make good on his threat? The filibuster. Now America has a new president. Senator McConnell wasn't able to filibuster President Biden's American Rescue Plan because the Senate used a procedural device known as reconciliation, which allowed it to pass with a majority vote. All 50 Democratic senators and the vice president were prepared to vote and break the tie. Not one single Republican senator would vote for President Biden's rescue plan. Today, America is getting shots in the arm and checks in their pockets because we passed that bill despite the intransigence of the other side of the aisle. We're just beginning to break the back of this pandemic. There are still hot spots and worrisome reports, but we're beginning to break its back. And we're helping the millions of Americans who are hurting financially because of the pandemic shutdown. Now the Senate is ready to start work on the next chapter of our national economic recovery. President Biden's American Jobs Plan is a bold plan to invest in America, in our infrastructure, in order to tackle not only the needs of transportation, but climate change, job creation, and the growth in industries with good jobs here in America, not overseas, not in China, but here in America. That is President Biden's goal. It would rebuild our roads, bridges, rails, ports, airports, water systems. Madam President, I learned during the break that until 1986, the city of Chicago mandated in its plumbing code that the service line from the water main to the home be made of lead. Lead. We know lead is dangerous to everyone, certainly to children, and yet we have 23% of the lead service lines in America in Chicago and the surrounding area. That is a public health hazard. Some may not think that's infrastructure, but if you can't deliver safe drinking water to America, what else is important? We need to rebuild our 5G broadband internet and expand it, renewable energy, advanced research and technology. We need to create millions of jobs and to lay the foundation for American economic prosperity for decades to come. Last night on 60 Minutes, Chairman Jerome Powell spoke and was interviewed. It was the most encouraging report. He really believes we're right on the cusp of moving this nation forward. Dramatic increase in economic growth in this country. Isn't it about time? Haven't we paid our dues in this pandemic? And don't we need a president who wants to invest in America to make that happen? Senator McConnell has already said he opposes President Biden's American Jobs Act. Will our colleagues on the other side of the aisle really filibuster this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for America to regain the lead in the global economy for the 21st century? Would they really filibuster America's ability to compete and win against China and the competition for jobs and industries of the future? I hope not. We're all sent to the Senate with a job: fix the problems, not paralyze Congress. Despite what the dark money special interests might want, we should aim higher than killing good solutions under the dome with a filibuster. Let's talk, let's meet, let's reason things out, let's negotiate, and let's pass laws that protect America's democracy and our economic prosperity. On January 6th, hundreds of police officers risked their lives to protect our democracy. Don't we owe it to them to come together, honor their courage and sacrifice by doing the work of democracy?